Back in 2017, Thor Ragnarok surprised everyone by making Thor popular with the general audience, something that the MCU had failed to do up until that point, and while I do agree that Ragnarok was enjoyable, and that it made Thor a much more entertaining character, setting him up perfectly for his best appearance by far, which was in Infinity War, I never actually thought Ragnarok was all that great. I think that it was a very emotional story about death and loss and destruction, which had zero emotional moments due to everything, literally everything, being undercut by a joke. I mean, Asgard explodes and Korg immediately makes a joke after that. Now, I loved Korg in Ragnarok. He was hilarious, but I feel like he is the physical embodiment of what is wrong with Taika Waititi's direction of Thor, because he just jokes about everything. Nothing is taken seriously. Thor Love and Thunder takes this to a completely different level. This movie deals with not only death, destruction, and loss like Ragnarok, but it deals with the concepts of gods leaving their worshippers behind, not listening to their prayers, and caring about nothing but themselves. It deals with cancer. Jane Foster has cancer in this movie, and Valkyrie being the king of Asgard, dozens of gods are murdered, Sif loses her arm, Thor deals with heartbreak and loneliness and everything that he lost, or everyone that he lost, in the last 15 or so years. And every single one of those very, very deep concepts or emotional concepts, and what should be emotional, is completely undercut by comedy, some awful and truly distasteful out-of-place jokes that basically eroded every aspect of this movie. It's impossible to connect to any character development or any of the stakes in this movie because everything's a joke. I mean, how am I supposed to take this movie seriously when the characters themselves don't take any of the situations they're in seriously? I mean, all the kids of Asgard are kidnapped and we immediately go back to laughing at this stupid buffoon Thor. I mean, I can't take the stakes seriously, and I can't find the comedy funny, either due to the fact that the matters are a lot more serious than the tone suggests, or because, you know, the comedy isn't that funny. I honestly barely laughed in what should or was supposed to be a comedy movie. I mean, Taika Waititi is a really funny director. Ragnarok was a lot of fun, and while I didn't like the fact that it undercut the emotions, at least it was funny. Thor Love and Thunder, I barely laughed in the movie. I mean, I chuckled a couple times, but every single time I did, I really had this thought at the back of my mind thinking, that would have been better if it wasn't a joke, because it undercut an emotional moment or a serious moment. In terms of actual good comedy, there wasn't really any of it. I didn't laugh at anything Korg said. The goat screaming got old really, really quickly, and honestly, the comedy just wasn't there, which sucks because this movie cares about nothing but the comedy. Now, I will say that the one biggest redeeming quality of the movie is Gore the God Butcher, who is a great villain. Like, this movie, I would say, is one of the worst that Marvel has ever given us, but Gore somehow ended up being one of the best villains that Marvel has ever given us, mostly due to the fact that he has maybe the most interesting and unique motivation that we've ever seen from a Marvel villain, something that works kind of like an allegory for real-world religions of people praying to gods that never answer to them, which is an idea that absolutely fascinates me, which, while fantastic, was never really used in the story of this movie or in Thor's arc, because it really could have been so good. This movie proves time and time again, with Thor's stupidity or the absolute buffoonery of gods like Zeus and the entirety of Omnipotent City, that Gore is kind of right, and the gods are useless. They don't care about anything other than themselves. But they never have Thor reflect on that or challenge his idea of the gods. I mean, there's this entire scene where he asks the gods for help, and they say no because they don't care or they're scared, and Thor never reacts to that after that. Then he never thinks to himself, maybe Gore has a point, and that challenges his ideas of the gods. Instead, they just have Gore kidnap a bunch of children in order to make it clear as possible that he's evil. And even if he might maybe have a point, we still have to stop him because he's evil and he needs to be stopped, instead of really delving into the nuance or the depths of what his motivation is, because like I said, it's one of the most fascinating motivations that a villain has ever had, because mainly of how it can potentially connect to the real world and real world religions. I just find that fascinating. But in terms of the story and Thor's arc, they don't really do anything with it, which is baffling, if I'm being honest. And Gore falls victim to another one of the movie's biggest problems, which is its runtime. It's only 2 hours long, and it really needed an extra 15, 20, even 30 minutes. The movie's pacing is awful. It feels like a speeding bullet that never takes any breaks to develop the character's story arcs and their motivations, and everybody from Gore to Jane to Valkyrie to Korg to even Thor himself falls victim to a lack of development or room to breathe as characters, and the world building also. There are so many things that they could have explained had they just had an extra scene for each one of those things. I mean, Gore the God Butcher kills a single god in this movie, and it's in the opening scene before he becomes the God Butcher. Everything else is off screen and isn't really given that much weight due to everything being a joke. Could they really not take that seriously, or could they not add a scene or two showing Gore killing a god or two, maybe even a montage? I would have taken anything past the single god that we see him kill in this movie. Which sucks because Gore had the potential to be an S-tier MCU villain. I mean, he has this fascinating motivation. Christian Bale was fantastic in the role and the character was super creepy, but in the end he's just this awesome villain in what is otherwise a joke of a movie. And we see that in the one scene this movie takes itself seriously, where Thor, Jane, and Valkyrie fight Gore in the Shadow Realm. Well, it's easily the best scene of the movie, and Gore is a fantastic villain in this scene. But that's just one scene, one of like two scenes I could think of where the movie did genuinely take itself seriously. The other one being one scene with Jane's cancer. But as a whole, neither of those two scenes are enough to save this movie, because everything else to do with this villain and Jane's cancer is undercut by either a lack of development or everything being a joke, because Jane is in a similar situation to Gore. She's got this fantastic idea of a story which is completely undercut by the lack of screen time as well as the jokes. She's dealing with cancer, something that has the potential to be some of the most emotional scenes we've ever gotten before in the MCU, but again, they never take a second to just breathe and let the characters develop or emote or have any emotional scenes. She doesn't have any of that, and then she just dies in the end, which is a crying shame for two reasons. One, I thought that she was really cool in this movie. I really liked the way she used Mjolnir, how it broke into pieces and was used as like projectiles, but also because that just means that we're never going to be getting her storyline, her cancer storyline, with any depth, because this movie really didn't give it any. But hey, at least Thor has the broken hammer now and can use it in the same way she did. That's, I guess, a positive. This movie also creates some big plot holes for itself and for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, why didn't Thanos go after Eternity instead of the Infinity Stones? Like, it would have been so much easier, because according to this movie, all you really need is the Bifrost, and if it's because he didn't know about it, then how did Gore know about it? And if it's the case that you only really need the Bifrost, why didn't the Asgardians go to Eternity all the time? And if you could answer that by saying that you don't just need the Bifrost, you also need the other thing that he had in this movie, the Necro Sword, then why didn't the movie explain that? All they did was have a throwaway line saying that the Bifrost is the key, without explaining what else you need, or without stating that you need something else. And also, they never explained how Gore knew about Eternity, or about the fact that the Bifrost is the key. All of that is completely skipped over, and it baffles me that this movie is 2 hours long. This is one of the biggest things that baffles me about this movie. Why is it so short? There's so many things that really could have used some more screen time. So many things, and it's not like Marvel Universe movies or Marvel Cinematic Universe movies are known for being short. No Way Home was like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Endgame was like 3 hours long. Why are you mandating a 2-hour runtime? It makes no sense to me. And then there's also Thor giving his powers to the kids. I mean, first of all, why did he never do that before? Like, why did he not give the Avengers his powers and while they were fighting Thanos or Ultron or Loki or anybody? Why did he never do this before? And also, like, he's fine with children going out into battle, risking their lives, but if Jane does it, then that's a problem. That doesn't seem very heroic. Plus, also, like, where were the gods during Infinity War? Either they wanted to stop Thanos from killing half of them, or maybe Thor could have gone there to get their help. Why did none of that happen? I mean, during Infinity War or the Dark World or Ragnarok, any of those times, Thor could have gone to Omnipotent City, something that he's clearly known about his whole life, but he just didn't. Also, why didn't Thor call the Avengers in this movie? There's so many glaring questions left unanswered, because yet again, I said this, I'm beating a dead horse here. The movie never stops to take a second to breathe or explain anything. So I don't know. No answers really. Now, a fifth Thor movie was teased in the end credit scene, potentially with Zeus as the main villain this time, but it also might have Hercules. Also, I guess Thor is a father now. But if they do make that movie, and I'm guessing they will, I really hope Taika Waititi is not brought back for it, because I think this movie proved my concerns about Ragnarok were correct. He just doesn't take it seriously, and I don't think that next movie will be good either. It might deal with a lot of serious matters like this one did, which will be entirely undercut by everything being a joke. This movie has like 70,000 jokes in every single minute. It's tiring. It's ridiculous. It got to a point where I'm like, alright, stop it. Stop making jokes. I was rolling my eyes. There was that one scene where, you know, they took itself seriously. And I said to the person I was with, I swear to God, if there is one more joke after this scene, because, I mean, they hit like a stride. They got to a point where I was invested in the story and the characters. And I was like, okay, it's starting to get good. But no, they went right back to the jokes. They went right back to what made the movie insufferable up until that point. And yeah, I think that if they make another movie, they should not bring back Taika Waititi, because he just wants to make a comedy. He does not want to make an emotional, action-packed movie about a character who needs a lot of development. He just wants to make a comedy. And after all that, the movie dared to end itself with the title of the movie. I cannot express how hard I facepalmed when Korg uttered the words "Love and Thunder" as the credits began to roll. I guess that's just because Thor Love and Thunder is a joke.